By Tanya Gupta. BBC News image caption: Winds battered the south of England in what was the worst storm to hit the country since 1703. Ask people about the Great Storm which ravaged the south of England in 1987, and most will remember that forecast by weatherman Michael Fish, or Sevenoaks losing 6 of the trees that gave the town its name. What is mentioned far less is the loss of 18 lives. When we eventually got him out, he had suffocated under the rubble. They couldn't find a broken bone in his body. Alec Homewood was about 5 miles away from his childhood home when its roof fell in and killed his brother. Cyril Homewood, known as Bob, was upstairs asleep in his bedroom when the chimney collapsed, the force of which pushed the legs of his bed through the ceiling into the kitchen. It just devastated the house, his brother said. Virtually all the roof came down. Mother said had been killed, but we didn't know. Image copyright family handout. Image caption: Alec Homewood remembered his brother Bob, pictured as a great bloke. Mr. Homewood set out for the house at Biddenden in Kent, but countless trees felled by ferocious winds had made roads around the village impassable. Using a chainsaw, he hacked at them as he went. When he arrived at Beacon Hill Farm, he found his mother had been rescued from the drawing room by people living nearby. But when they tried to reach his 59-year-old brother, they found the bedroom was full of bricks and debris. It took me ages to get there, Mr. Homewood, now 72, remembered. The emergency services got him out in the end, but he was dead. Media playback is unsupported on your device. Media caption: Weatherman Michael Fish told viewers there was no threat of a hurricane. Severe weather had been predicted before the Great Storm, as it later became known, hit the south coast of England in the early hours of the 16th of October. The previous afternoon, the Met Office had forecast winds for the Channel and very heavy rain overland. The BBC's weather presenter Michael Fish had quashed rumours a hurricane was on the way. Don't worry, there isn't, he infamously told the nation. But just a few hours later, the storm changed direction. Severe weather warnings were issued to emergency responders, including the Ministry of Defence and London Fire Brigade. But what became the worst storm since 1703 was by that point unstoppable. Image caption: Cars were crushed by trees ripped from their roots. Image caption: The cost of the devastation was estimated at more than £1 billion. A maximum gust of 115 miles per hour was recorded at Shoreham in West Sussex, while London was battered by gales of up to 94 miles per hour. On the south coast, the Royal Sovereign lightship witnessed an average wind speed of 86 miles per hour. A ship capsized at Dover and a Channel ferry was driven ashore near Folkestone. Thousands of homes were left without power for several days, and the damage caused by the storm was put at more than £1 billion. The number of trees lost was estimated at 15 million. 18 people in the UK and 4 in France were killed. Image copyright Froglets Publications. Image caption: The roof and chimney of Beacon Hill Farm collapsed, killing Bob Homewood. Kent Police Constable Douglas Stitt was 5 miles away in Tenterden when he got the call for help. He said the 5-mile drive to Biddenden, normally a 10-minute journey, took them more than 2 hours. Trees were strewn across the road every quarter of a mile, and a fireman with a chainsaw had to cut through the debris as they went. Great storm, the healing power of nature. Michael Fish talks about that forecast. When they got there, they found a scene of devastation. The 999 crews knew they were dealing not with a rescue, but a recovery. It was beyond that stage, Mr. Stitt said. We managed to climb through the back door. The whole landing was smashed in. It was a case of gradually picking our way over the rubble. It looked like a bomb had hit it. Image copyright family handout. Image caption: Bob Homewood was remembered as a super person who loved working on his father's farm. Image copyright Getty Images. Image caption: The Met Office was criticized for failing to predict the devastating scale of the storm. Image caption: Though experts agree it was not a hurricane, the country experienced hurricane-strength winds in the months and years that followed. Debate raged about whether the storm had been a hurricane. Experts agreed it was not by definition, because it had not originated in the tropics. After an internal inquiry, the Met Office improved its forecasting technology amid allegations it had failed to alert the nation. For Mr. Homewood, the shock of his brother's death did not hit him until days after the storm had passed. He remains adamant it was a hurricane, even having words to that effect inscribed on his brother's gravestone. I'll never ever forget him. I think of him nearly every day, he said. When I think back, it was terrible. But you can't defeat nature. The Great Storm of 1987 was as bad as having a bomb dropped on the place. Media playback is unsupported on your device. Media caption: Alec Homewood said he thinks of his brother, Bob, every day. Mr. Homewood was not the only fatality of the Great Storm, but media coverage of those killed was limited. John Dowling, who was deputy editor of the Bexhill Observer, remembers how Ronald Davies died at the Queen's Hotel in Hastings when a chimney crashed through the roof. But the newspaper did not report his death because it happened outside its patch. Instead, it focused on the community's response, including how a group of people in their 70s went out to clear roads with chainsaws. Memories are very selective, said Mr. Dowling. Think of memories of 87 and you have certain images, and perhaps people tend to wipe out the nasty bits and remember the silly bits. Image copyright Penn National Trust. Image caption Emmett's Garden, owned by the National Trust, lost 95% of its woodland to gale force winds. The journalist said it was darned difficult finding people after the storm. Many had left their houses, and neighbors did not know where they had gone. He remembered a roof being torn off one property, leaving a bedroom open to the sea and sky, an entire penthouse that was swept into a car park, and a rowing boat that ended up in a road 400 yards from the sea. It was all hands to the pump, by everyone who could help. Builders, people, emergency services. It was the Dunkirk spirit. The Great Storm was later categorized as a only 200-year event. On top of the environmental cost, there was structural damage as trees, ripped from the ground by their roots, crushed houses and vehicles and blocked roads and railways. Even now, residents and historians agree the loss of an estimated 15 million trees was devastating. When we looked and saw the trees, hundreds of years old, that was just heartbreaking, said Biddenden Parish Councillor Eileen Cansdale. There was structural damage that could be addressed, but the trees couldn't be replaced. It completely changed everything. Those killed in the Great Storm. Image caption Alec Holmwood had killed tragically by the hurricane, engraved on his brother's headstone. Mrs. Barrelaga, Hove John Barton, Petersfield Patricia Bellwood, Rotham David Burge, Lost at Sea Sylvia Brown, Canvey Island Anthony Burton, Salisbury Ronald Davies, Hastings Robert Doak, Croydon Robert Holmwood, Biddenden Ronald Horlock, Lost at Sea David Gregory, Christchurch Terence Marin, Lincoln's Inn Fields James Reed, Hastings Sidney Riches, Kings Lynn So Sammy Schilling, Chatham Georgina Wells, Hayward's Heath Graham White, Christchurch Source Windblown, by Tamsin, Treverton Jones. Historian Bob Oakley said news of the loss of life emerged only in the days after the storm because people in the area were still without power. There was no radio communication, because most people used electric radios, and there was no TV at all. It was only later we learned people had died. Image caption Cars and houses were crushed by falling trees. Image caption A light aircraft was blown upside down in Essex. He said people remember the damaged landscape more than anything else. Here in Sevenoaks, we lost our name. Sevenoaks was reduced to one oak. Most people went to bed and woke up and found a tree in their garden. So, people think about the countryside. People don't think about those who died, because they were spread over a large area. Having said that, every death is a tragedy. See more about the Great Storm on Inside Out, on BBC One South East, South West and South on Monday the 16th of October at 19:30 BST, and later on the BBC iPlayer.